So I thought I'd do this video because every now and then I touch on it about driverless technology. But a lot of people think driverless technology is closer than what it is. I mean, it could be as close as 10 years, but it's probably closer to 20 years. And here's the reason why. The driver will actually be the very last thing in the trucking industry automated because of all the safety issues. But there's a whole line of things and myriad of things that have to be put in place before a truck can actually be driverless. Actually, probably it's going to be one of two things will be the very first thing that will let the driver know that the driverless movement is actually finally in motion. Because right now it's standing still. They keep pushing for it, pushing for it, pushing for it. But right now it's standing still. So if you're a truck driver, you'll know most of these things that I'm talking about. And when you really sit back and you think about it, it will make sense to you. It's going to be one of the very first things that will be changed. Will be one of two. It'll be either brokers will be completely replaced by AI, which that is already starting. It's not common, but there's a lot of systems out there that are starting to come online where shippers and receivers don't have to deal with brokers at all anymore. You just have where it's basically just a computer platform, and the trucking companies go on there, and just like they have to do with their broker, they put all their information on there, they leave it all up to date, and the shippers and the receivers, they just put the information on there for what they want, and there's no broker involved with these platforms anymore. It's all done through AI. And it's starting already, but it's not commonplace. But there are a couple platforms out there. I can't remember the names of them, but I know I've seen one or two of them that's how they work. And so it is starting. Lumpers. Lumpers probably will go after forklift operators. Forklift operators will probably go first, especially in warehouse situations. So, ironically, it's going to be the forklift operation that's actually going to be the safest way for them to test their actual technology with the trucks to see how well the technology can adapt, because it's a more controllable environment, but they can let a lot of random things take place. And because it's a controlled environment that has a lot of unpredictability and randomness, they can actually see how quickly the AI technology can learn and adapt to situations. And then from there, they'll know what the things are that they have to address with the driverless technology and the trucks on a much more real world application. So the forklift drivers, when you start seeing more and more warehouses without forklift drivers and actual robot forklifts, that's when you know that we're between 10 and 15 years out. For any driver who's ever had to deal with lumpers and write out lumper checks, it makes no sense that we're writing out these lumper checks. It's a very, very simple thing to do. When AI will be able to take care of this later on, but when a broker, it's a very simple step. When a broker is brokering the load from the shipper to the receiver, the broker knows exactly how many pallets are on the truck going to the receiver. And so all they need to find out from the receiver is, do you use a broker lumper service? If the receiver says, yes, we use a lumper service, good, put me in contact with your lumper service. They talk to the lumper service. They say, this is how many pallets I got coming to you. How much does it cost per pallet to have these taken off the truck? One of the things that the lumper might say is, well, it's this much per pallet, but if we got to break down the pallets and restack the pallets, then we have to wait till we break down the pallets to find out how much it will cost. How do you want the pallets stacked? That's the simplest answer. How do you want the pallets stacked? Do you want them 5 to a pallet? Do you want the most product we can possibly get on the pallet? Or do you want them stacked a certain way? If you want them stacked a certain way, how do you want the shipper to stack these pallets to ship them to you? Because it's not our responsibility to pay for what your warehouse wants different. They need to let the shipper know how they want this done. This way, granted, they're not going to get as much product on a pallet that way, but if they want to charge people for getting the most product that they could possibly get, then they have to accept that. If they don't want the most product they could possibly get, that it's not our responsibility to pay and wait for somebody to restack pallets because you wanted the most product on the truck as possible, but then you expect the driver to sit there and write out a check for that convenience for you, and for us to be inconvenienced by that convenience for you. So there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to see change. When you start seeing these things change, then you're hitting that 10-year mark, and maybe even sooner. Maybe you're even less than 10 years. Maybe you're 7 to 10 years out there. When they start expecting the driver to let the truck drive more and more often, that's when we know we're under 7 years out from completely driverless technology. There is actually a roadmap to this. I mean, the years might not be exactly dead on. I could be off by, 1 or 2 years with like maybe when, it'll be 5 years out when they start doing what they're wanting us to let the truck drive itself. And, so you can move the numbers a little bit, but in general, those numbers are pretty much there. Those are your safe tier numbers to work with to actually have an idea of what's going on with the industry. But driverless technology is a ways out there. Driverless technology is a lot farther out than people understand, because we're the very last one to be replaced in this industry. We really are. The warehouses will all be automated before we are automated. I know a lot of people don't think that, but it's because of the safety issues with the truck. We will be the very last thing automated. Everything else is easier to automate. So there's a lot more things that can be automated to save money. We're the very last thing to automate. And because of the safety issues and because everything else before us is easier to automate and easier to replace, they're going to start saving money with all that stuff first while working on replacing us. But we'll be the very last thing replaced in the industry because we are the most difficult thing to replace in the industry. And one of the things that they're going to be worried about is if they bring in the automated technology with the trucks first and it all goes wrong and it goes bad, then there's no way OSHA is going to let them replace. OSHA is going to make it more expensive for them to automate the warehouses and to automate everything else involved. So we're actually the very last thing to be automated in this industry is the truck driver themselves. I still, I tell people all the time, this is a absolutely. I mean, you can work. I'm not saying that every single person you'll work for out there are bad people. I mean, I've actually been blessed with my career. Most of the people I've worked for have been decent people, and the people I'm working for now are absolutely. They're just great people. They're wonderful people. But most truck drivers don't have the experience that I have when it comes to dealing with the people that they work for. There are a lot of snakes out here. There are a lot of people out here that are just, they make politicians look like the most wonderful people on the planet. They really do. I mean, they make Congress look like, job one. I mean, there are a lot of bad people to work for out here. And you see it all the time. Look at all these drivers that just get stranded out in the middle of nowhere because the company closed their door. They didn't even let the driver know, hey, listen, you got to get the truck, give them a day or two notice. Say, listen, you either got to get home with your truck or you got to get the truck back up here to the yard. They just left them stranded out in the middle of nowhere. How much lower of a human being can you get? That is one of the most, just strand people like that with absolutely no care at all for them. And sadly, that's the majority of companies will do that to a driver. That is what the majority of companies will do. Not all of them. Not all of them. There's a lot of companies that will make sure that the driver gets the truck back to the terminal or back home so that arrangements can be made with the bank through bankruptcy to get the truck home. But some of these the majority of these companies, they just don't care. They absolutely do not care. And I mean, I don't, it shows the integrity of these companies that you're going to be dealing with. So I do. I think with that, if you're going to get into this, you need to remember when you go to a job interview, that's a two-way interview. You need to remember you're interviewing the company too. And if a company doesn't like the idea that you're interviewing them, then you know right away that is not a company to work for. A company has no problem with being interviewed when it's a decent company because they want you to know that you're working for decent people, that you're going to be working for decent people, and that they want decent people working for them. A decent company that will be worth working for, they will have no problem with a two-way interview. And that goes with any job, actually. Any job you ever take, with the exception of maybe your very first job. When you get your first real job, and I'm not talking about it, I'm talking about just your first real job when you get your working papers and you're 14, 15, 16, 17, those kind of jobs that you're getting before you're 18, that might be the one exception. But once you turn 18, any job you take from 18 on for the rest of your life, you should be interviewing the company you're thinking about going to work for. That should always be a two-way interview. So, in companies that don't like that, that's not a company to work for. But as far as, the job security, with the exception of companies going bankrupt and leaving their drivers stranded thousands of miles from home because they're just lowlifes. Aside from that, in general, the job security, drivers are going to be the very last ones in this industry to be replaced because we are the most difficult thing in this industry to replace. So everything else will be automated first because money can be saved there. I mean, across the industry, you're talking billions of dollars a year by replacing forklift drivers, by replacing brokers. By time all said and done, they can replace everybody else. Literally, they can replace everybody else in this industry within 2, 3, maybe 4 years, easily, and save twice, maybe even 3 times, 4 times as much is what they'll save replacing the drivers. The most difficult part about replacing the drivers is the safety aspect. So, as far as job security, the driver is going to be the very last one in the industry replaced. And it's like I said, I mean, there's a lot of people out there trying to scare drivers because they don't want drivers uniting. But the reality is, we're the very last thing to be replaced. So that's the truth behind automation in this industry. Everybody else in this industry is easily replaced and already in the process of being replaced. And they'll be replaced because, like I said, they could say they're gonna save a lot more money replacing all them other people first, multiple times, multiple fold, before the money that they save replacing us. And because of the dangers involved with replacing us, they're going to want to make sure everything is in place and everything is bulletproof before they replace us. Because otherwise, for the cost of replacing us, they are going to lose multiple times that cost in lawsuits by using poor technology that's not ready to be rolled out. So we will definitely be the very last thing replaced is the truck driver. I know you keep hearing it's right around the corner, it's right around the corner. No. AI in this industry as an overwhelming tool? Yes. That is right around the corner. Because almost every other job in this industry is easily replaced with AI. Easily. And you're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars a year saved across the industry. But because of the billions and billions and billions of dollars at risk through lawsuits and insurance premiums, if they roll out the driverless technology too fast, no, we're going to be the very last ones replaced because they want to make sure that's bulletproof. Because replacing everything else, there's very little legal ramification to it. To us, to replace me, there is a lot of legal ramification when it goes wrong.